Thank you so much, Klaus. Yes, we are indeed thrilled to have today the opportunity to discuss with six public administration reform leaders from the Western Balkans region. We have 5 ministers and 1 deputy minister. And having been Minister of Public Administration myself years ago, I can testify that it is not at all an easy job. Public administration reform and public financial management reform are fundamentally horizontal, cutting across all ministries and agencies, and often facing opposition both at political and administrative level. And it takes really determined leadership to make real change. Let me first introduce our panelists to the audience. We have with us 5 ministers. Mrs. Elisa Spirapoli, Minister responsible for Parliament relations in the government of Albania. We have Mr. Josip Grubeša, Minister of Justice in the Council of Ministers of Bosnia and Herzegovina. We have Mrs. Tamara Srzentic, Minister of Public Administration, Digital Society and Media in the government of Montenegro. We have Mr. Admirim Aliti, Minister of Information Society and Public Administration in the government of North Macedonia. And we have Mrs. Marija Obradović, Minister of Public Administration and Local Self-Government in the government of Serbia. And we also have 1 deputy minister today with us. Public Administration of Kosovo will be represented today by Mr. Bardil Dobra, Deputy Minister in the Ministry of Interior, responsible for public administration. Welcome, dear ministers, and thank you so much for joining us today. So without further ado, I think we can now start the panel. As you have all seen from the presentation, the 2021 monitoring reports show that the region on average has been making progress, but the situation and the trends are uneven and there is still vast scope for improvement. Let's kick off by analyzing the key factors of success and key obstacles. I will kindly ask you, ministers, to limit your answers to 3 minutes per question so that we can keep on schedule and have some time at the end of our discussion also to take questions from the audience as well. Let's start with Albania. Albania improved results in all areas except the strategic framework of PAR, and is the regional champion or co-champion in 3 areas. Now, Minister Spirapoli, could you please share with us your opinion, what is the recipe for Albania's successful performance in public administration reform? How strongly did the EU integration factor contribute to the pace of reforms? And what else is behind your good overall performance?
Hi, everyone. Am I being heard? Is it okay?
Yes,
okay.
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you, Gregor. Hi, dear colleagues, honorable guests. I will be speaking in place of the Deputy Prime Minister, who was supposed here today, but because of the emergency, he will not be able to. But nevertheless, I'm responsible for presenting the achievements of the public administration in Parliament, so I will do my best. Of course, the last Sigma report, as you mentioned, launched on December 2021 with EU Commission colleagues, provides a rigorous assessment that indicates the way forward and the good progress achieved by Albania as a frontrunner in the region. Since 2013, related to good government and public administration reform, which affects broadly the public administration, the public finance management, reports, public services, digitalization, anti-corruption, and local governance are a main priority for the country and for the government in its way forward, and as well as in terms of our relationship with the European Commission to strengthen our position in the accession process. As you know, we are at a very peculiar phase when we're waiting for the first intergovernmental conference to actually effectively start the negotiation process. Our rigorous commitment for the progress of the country in itself, but as also compared to the region, and to speed up the process in the EU path and to bring long-lasting results for the country. We don't consider this process as a check the box in terms of our commitment to the EU, but also as an internal development and part of our progress for a better life for our citizens. Specifically, compared to 2017, based on the last OECD Sigma assessment, the values of, as you mentioned, of 5 out of 6 key area indicators have increased significantly. In 2021, Albania had the strongest performance compared to its neighbors in the West Balkan region, and we also commend their process because we don't see our progress as separate from the rest of the region. And also in terms of Albania's performance, recording higher than the regional average values for the 6 key area indicators. We are stepping into a very important momentum for the country in terms of our EU integration process, the preparation for the intergovernmental conference, which we are taking very seriously, and the adoption of the negotiating framework by the Council to officially open the negotiations. So we have not been resting as we wait for the date, which has caused a slight disappointment because of the video that you know, but we have been working to be able to work on the framework and then be ready for the day. As recalled in the communication from the Commission, enhancing the accession process, a credible EU perspective for the Western Balkans, the core objective of the European Union's engagement with Albania and also the entire Western Balkans is to prepare us to meet all the requirements for membership. This includes supporting fundamental good governance and democratic principles, rule of law, and economic reforms and alignment with core European values. This will in turn, we believe, foster solid, sustainable, accelerated economic growth and social convergence. That's how we see also the progress with the administration, very closely linked to the economic development of the country. We know that it's impossible to bring important businesses and to make progress in all other areas if you don't have a solid administration, apolitical and professional. The last progress report for Albania, announced on October 2021, highlighted progress under good governance and considered steps ahead, which stated that Albania is moderately prepared with the reform of its public administration. In order to meet the well-established criteria and the policy priorities, Albania is committed to deliver and implement the fundamental reforms essential for success in the EU path. The good governance must be strengthened significantly as a fundamental pillar of the enlargement process and a basis for effective implementation of EU policies and legislation. Specifically for 2021, the quality index of the compliance with the good government principles of the strategic document resulted at the level of 87.5%, which is a trend above the average and higher than the 2020 high level achieved. Despite many challenges created by the earthquake in November 2019 and the COVID-19 pandemic, over the past years, Albania has made progress in implementing important reforms in different areas of public administration, building on its solid and stable policy framework and having in place a set of key digital enablers. The government has managed to maintain its leading position in the region in the area of service delivery and digital transformation, which is one of our priorities also in the government program. Specifically, with only 1% of public administration online in 2017 services, today Albanian citizens receive 90% of public services online through the platform e-Albania. This platform serves 1.9 million Albanian citizens and 85,000 businesses on a regular basis. Over 2 million citizens and businesses are registered, and everyone receives personal documents in real time, such as civil status certificates, insurance attestations, utility payments, etc. We believe that this is very important because the digitalization of the services is very important also on fighting corruption. Is also in improving, as well as improving the public administration performance and the perceptions. Businesses access more than 300 services on the platform, starting from the initial registration, application for permits and licenses, paying taxes, and submitting balance sheets. This digital revolution enables us to spare citizens and businesses, and this is calculated, more than 500 years of time over the past 3 years and saved them 4 million euros. Related to the public finance management, results have been achieved with increase in tax revenues by 2.25% of the GDP. The revenues increased by 1.5% of the GDP as a result of fiscal policies, plus 1.25% of GDP as a result of good tax administration and processes that have been digitalized. In the field of human resource management, Albania has been evaluated with the highest scores in the Western Balkan region, well exceeding the regional average. Specifically, a progress has been achieved on the recruitment process, a process now digitalized in every phase, increasing the quality of the conducted tests and contributing directly in the increase of the transparency in the recruiting procedures. Improving e-access to public information has continued with the adaptation of a new model of transparency program already functional in 61 public authorities of great importance in the country, while it is in the process of being expanded in other authorities and institutions. Our new agenda for the 2030 for good governance reforms, which is also part of our government program that was voted in Parliament. The priorities for the future lie in strengthening capacities related to negotiation preparations and fulfilling the political criteria in our EU path. This new approach and vision of our government for 2030 will pave us the way for building the capacities for the whole of the government approach and successful negotiation process. Our vision based on the new roadmap 2030, which is developed and is developing this year on good governance and public administration reform, would consist on an efficiently managed, professional and merit-based state administration, equipped with better policy training and skills, better administrative practice procedures, better public finance management, which provides services to citizens and businesses at central and local level in a transparent and efficient manner with high integrity and accountability. The roadmap 2030 will be accompanied with EU condition benchmarks and will be measured through the performance approach. The roadmap vision is based on the following reform priorities, which we encourage Sigma, OECD for the support and compliment them and thank them for the technical support that they have provided to ensure an effective strategic planning and evidence-informed, inclusive and transparent policy making in central and local governments based on the whole of society approach, professional, effective and trustworthy public servant corpus, an accountable, open and transparent public administration, digital processes at the heart of the administrative management, an accessible and human-centered service delivery based on the government as a single platform, and through multi-layer government approach, a sustainable, predictable, efficient, and transparent management of the public finances. In conclusion, because I don't think we have more time, I think I have taken all of my minutes. The Albanian government remains committed to implementing and key reforms for success in this road to the EU in order to meet the membership criteria. The 2030 Good Governance Reform Roadmap will ensure that good governance is significantly strengthened as a fundamental pillar of the enlargement process and the basis for the effective implementation of EU policies and legislation. We are very warm-hearted by the report, and we are hoping, and definitely we believe, that we will keep this rate of improvement and obviously to face the new challenges. Thank you.
Yes, and good luck with that. Thank you very much for your very comprehensive answer. And now we move to Serbia. Minister Obradović, Serbia also is performing very well. You made progress in all areas, except also strategic framework of public administration reform. But I have to flag here that a full strategic framework was enacted after our cutoff date. So as per today, if we measure today, the indicator values in SFPAR would be much, much higher. Yeah. But the most remarkable results you have in service delivery. We know that there is strong political commitment in the government to advance user-centric service delivery, and in particular, digitalization. Was, in your opinion, political will crucial for successful performance? And what else made a difference?
Mm-hmm.
Ja mislim da je sada u redu. Dobar dan, Gregore. Dobar dan, uvažene kolege. Hvala vam, gospodine Virant, na pitanju.
Thank you for this question, Mr. Virant, and thank you for the monitoring report. Well done. I'll try to be very specific in my response. We certainly appreciate this confirmation of our efforts. This is international confirmation. We managed to identify progress in our own context, but in comparison with the region, it gives us additional assurances. Yes, just as you said, at the time of the report, Serbia had the umbrella 10-year strategy, the reform program, and the PFM program. At the time, we missed the program on policy management, which was enacted in November 2021. So we believe that we now have a credible framework in place on PFM. The strategic framework for the first time introduced the umbrella approach with regard to service delivery, featuring, just as you mentioned, user-centric and digitalized services. This is something that we are particularly proud of in Serbia, and this is something that is generally recognized by citizens. Political support and political commitment is critical, just as you mentioned, and thanks to political commitment, even before the COVID crisis, we had a number of digitalized services which enabled us to orient ourselves to contactless service delivery. Implementation of innovative tools, immunization of our population was strongly supported by e-government. This can be confirmed by the citizens of the region, particularly those from Bosnia and Herzegovina and North Macedonia, who came to Serbia to get immunized. And this is something that we're particularly happy about. In the first half of 2021, the Republic of Serbia was one of the top-ranked countries when it came to immunization daily rates, and all major global media reported on the Serbian example. All related services were digitalized from the start. and we issued more than 2 million certificates stored in electronic format, and that served as an excellent preparation for what we believe will become mainstream in Serbia, in the region, and globally, namely this kind of health certificates. So this was a test for all services, not just those COVID-related. It showed us what needed to be improved. So the public administration reform tried to capture all the upcoming challenges, such as disparities in service delivery, lack of uniformity of practice among local governments, the need to improve service delivery to end users. In addition to political commitment, another key factor is the staff working in the civil service. If you don't have a good team plus political support, you won't be able to perform well. So whenever I have the opportunity, I highlight the role of civil servants, the staff working in the civil service, and I always try to explain the importance of the role of the civil servant and the importance of having the civil servant satisfied with his or her job as a key element to successful service delivery. This is something that we often ask in surveys. How do civil servants act in the role of service providers, and on the other end of the counter, in the role of ordinary citizens as service users? We believe that improve service delivery.
Really a very good point when you said that the civil servants should be able to put themselves in the shoes of the citizens, of the users of services. Thank you very much. We can now move to Montenegro. Minister Tamara Srzentic, first of all, allow me to start with a personal note and to congratulate you on having been selected, I think just yesterday, to the list of top 40 European young leaders of 2022. That's really an amazing achievement. Now, on Montenegro performance, let me just flag that Montenegro made progress in the area of civil service and HRM, but less so in other areas. You have recent professional experience from the United States, which puts you in an excellent position to make comparisons. Could you share your view on the differences and maybe also similarities between the state of mind in politics and public administration in the States and in the Western Balkans, and particularly in your homeland, of course? How do these differences and similarities affect the trajectory of public administration reform in Montenegro?
So hello, everyone. Really happy to be here today. And thank you, Gregor, for your kind words as always. I'm truly immensely grateful to have the opportunity to be a part of this panel and to be able to speak to our progress, but also the challenges in the area of public administration reform, which is the key priority area of our government. I also feel privileged to be in the presence of the fierce leaders, ministers, the deputy minister, each who come from different backgrounds and have very unique points of view and experience, and really grateful to continue to exchange good practices and learn from you all. So far, really insightful presentations and sharing, so thank you. I also want to give a huge shout out to Gregor, Timo, Nick, and all of you, entire Sigma team, and for years, through the changes of administration, Sigma has been a North Star and truly the constant, really an extension of our team. And last year, we immensely benefited from your hands-on support with public administration reform, goal setting, public consultation, expert assistance, and administrative support. Also wanted to thank you for the report you presented today. It was extremely informative, and thank you for making it available and accessible online. So I will share that with my teams as soon as this is over. When it comes to public administration reform, we started with the imperative that the people of Montenegro deserve a human-centered government they can trust and rely on, that treats them with dignity. A government that is responsive, open, transparent, effective, and delivers policies, programs, and services around their needs. So last year, we worked diligently with civil sector, NGOs, and public servants to co-design public administration reform strategy. And this strategy really sets a shared vision and raises a bar of what public service of 21st century looks like. And with a robust action plan, we've set our KPIs and a roadmap and on how we will get there. And public administration reform aims to modernize our government by simplifying bureaucratic processes, creating enabling conditions for a human-centered policy, program, and service delivery, empowering human potential by deploying the right people in the right places and injecting knowledge and practices from the private sector. A huge priority area for us is transparency and creating a more transparent government. So new free access to information policy is a huge win, and it presents a real reform in how we build
pristup, odnosno politika na planu pristupa informacijama. I tako ne bismo ostali samo na riječima, nego i pokazali da ta politika funkcioniše. Imamo novi tim i nove procese koji će olakšati
addresses some of the stickiest challenges. Another key priority is improving digital service delivery across our government.
Također, prioritet nam je pružanje usluga. Strategija digitalizacije predstavlja hrabru viziju i mapu puta za digitalizaciju zemlje, a jedan dio toga odnosi se i brže, jeftinije i efikasnije pružanje usluga od strane javne uprave. Što se tiče razlika i sličnosti za koje ste me pitali, sve vlade...
Razlika, da li зборуваме за мали или големи влади?
Fondolën janë të mëdha ose jo. Valla façon me problematikat të ngjashme me kalcifikim.
Ima previše naglaska na planiranje umjesto na realizaciju, previše bavljenja rizicima umjesto šansama odnosno prilikama. Sam ja imala priliku da primjerim iskustvo iz SAD. Fokusirala sam se na kulturu i na kapacitet za realizaciju. Pitali ste me za stav, odnosno pogled na svijet.
At the center of our policies. In fact, our people are our policies. And my number one job as a proud public servant leader has always been to put people first and create culture intentionally. My goal with my teams in the USA and here has been focusing on creating an underlying culture of organizational success that is critical to creating optimal performance at our ministry. So in Obama's White House and the California government, I helped launch and run Office of Digital Services that aim to improve how government works and delivers policies and services. And key attributes that made these efforts successful included an environment of experimentation, entrepreneurialism, and teamwork, along with leeway from leadership to fail fast and take risks. And the team was able to overcome even the toughest challenges because our culture was based on the trust, collaboration.
Izazove zato što se naša suradnja zasnivala na povjerenju i na kraju smo uspjeli da sprovedemo važne aktivnosti na planu reforme zdravstvenog sistema. Dakle, u pitanju je okruženje koje omogućuje uspjeh, a sve to se
Ministers also reflected on that and the importance of that too in their sharing. As the renowned management guru Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, and in my view, culture is the key to success in the fields of public administration, because ultimately public administration is about putting people first and unlocking the power and potential of public servants and situating them in a great organizational culture. And this is a system and leadership challenge. And then the second similarity, which my teams and I have been wrestling with in the United States and Montenegro, is moving from a culture of planners to a culture of learners and doers. Governments around the world are stuck in long, tedious cycles of policy and strategy making, while it is often the case that public service struggles with what I call implementation gap, an ability to test whether the policy or strategy truly works in action and addresses a real problem on the ground, which ultimately leads to an effective implementation. And to address this implementation gap, we are launching Montenegro Digital, a little startup inside of the government, where we are bringing best minds of our country and from abroad, embedding practices from private industry like research, human-centered design, agile, iterative design, data analytics to stream the capacity and improve policy and service delivery and coordinate implementation of public administration reform, KPIs across Montenegro government. And to stream capacity and empower public servants across government, we are also putting them through a digital and leadership academy setting them up with mentors and creating safe pathways for rotation and mobility within the organization so they can try themselves in a new role within another directorate of a ministry. All these tools, techniques, and methods which are part of these efforts are open source, so I'm happy to share with my fellow ministers or anyone out there who is interested in taking advantage of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was really, really inspiring. And we can move to North Macedonia now. Now, North Macedonia has improved in 4 areas and is above the regional average in 3 areas, which is a solid baseline, I would say, for the upcoming EU accession negotiations. Minister Aliti, the current government has just recently been sworn in, and it appears that much emphasis is exactly on good governance. Looking backwards to the work of previous governments, what were, in your opinion, the strengths and the weaknesses of the overall management of public administration reform?
Okay, good morning, dear Gregor. Good morning, colleagues Elisa, Tamara, Maria, Josip, and Bardil. Dobro jutro, mirmëngjes. Thank you very much, Gregor, for hosting us. And this is a very good question. As you mentioned, we have a new government, and I'm one of the new ministers. So we are continuing with more implementation of the current reform process that the previous government has worked on until now. Of course, Sigma monitoring report for the Republic of North Macedonia for 2021 came at the right time. So we must work in the fields where there is a need for enhanced implementation and continue where we are assessed as improved. I would like to emphasize that Sigma report is of very great importance for our country. For us, it is a document that gives a realistic and objective picture of the progress, but also to the areas that require additional reforms in order to comply with EU standards. During 2020 and 2021, the Republic of North Macedonia has faced major challenges which affected the implementation of the planned activities envisaged in the power strategy. On the one hand, we had political challenges, and on the other hand, the global pandemic situation with COVID-19, which gave a major blow worldwide and contributed to the change of social relations and processes in our country. But more importantly, the work of public administration has not stopped, given the fact that regular live meetings have been replaced by online meetings, where technology has taken the lead in the way how things are working. The professionalization and modernization of public administration is constantly relevant, and it is seen as the basis of the entire public sector on which the processes and development in any democratic society depend. We are aware of the importance of power, which, according to the new accession negotiations methodology, for the first time is specifically defined as an area covered by the process and is part of the first cluster basics, which is essential for the dynamics of negotiations as a whole. Our Ministry of Information Society and Administration has a double role in the PAR process, because on the one hand, it is a responsible institution for monitoring and reporting for the implementation of the PAR strategy. And on the other hand, it is a leading institution for implementation of most of the planned activities in the PAR strategy. At the same time, the implementation of the measures and activities of the PAR strategy aimed at improving the legal framework for administration and professionalization of senior management structures was continued by ensuring a clear distinguishment amongst the political and professional level in the administration, with the adoption of a new law on top management service, which was withdrawn from the parliamentary procedure to harmonize it with the new LAS and LEPS. On 17 September 2021, the new law on administrative servants, law on public sector employees, and law on top management service were published on our system called ENER. These three laws, which are interconnected, are the basis for complete exclusion of political influences, but also any other form of influence in the employment procedures in public sector institutions. These laws directly affect the complete depolitization of the state administration, and we think that they lay the foundation of values and meritocracy to reach the job or promotion. Also, we proceeded with the process of reorganization and optimization of the state administration bodies, agencies, and inspection services to introduce a clear hierarchical subordination according to the role of the institution. I hope this answered your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. Thanks. Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us today. You are the key person of public administration reform in Kosovo that has achieved progress since 2017 in two areas, namely in service delivery and public financial management. And in the area of PFM, not only you have improved your performance, you're even the regional champion of PFM. So what were, in your opinion, the drivers of successful performance in this area specifically, and could they help to advance faster in other aspects as well?
Good morning, dear Mr. Virant, distinguished representatives of the Western Balkan states, dear friends from the OECD, Sigma, and the European Union, ladies and gentlemen. We have received the Sigma monitoring report for 2021, and we would like to thank the Sigma team for the effort and the work that has been done. The government of Kosovo is committed to maintaining the positive trend and addressing the challenges identified in the field of public financial management, as well as using the lessons for the other specific fields. PFM reforms have been comprehensive and ambitious in order to maintain macroeconomic stability and sustainable growth in line with international standards and European integration objectives. A sound PFM system is essential for the effective implementation of reforms, policies, and the achievement of development outcomes. The government of the Republic of Kosovo has been committed to advancing accountability and transparency in the PFM system, which in the end has resulted in improved service delivery for citizens and businesses. We believe that the main drivers of successful performance in PFM, which could be also used in other areas, are the following. First, the commitment of the government of Kosovo to sound, accountable, and modern PFM. In the framework of PAR and PFM dialogue, the commitment to implement the reforms as well as to address the recommendations have been continuously confirmed. Second, the cooperation with development partners. Thanks to the support by development partners, including the European Union, Sigma, and other organizations, the government has managed to properly address the challenges and to achieve satisfactory implementation of objectives in PFM. Third, the ownership of local institutions of the PFM reform process. The coordination group for PFM created by the Ministry of Finance has been responsible for coordinating the implementation, monitoring, and reporting of PFM reforms, as well as the PFM dialogue. Effective teamwork, as well as the involvement of all relevant stakeholders, including civil society organizations, have contributed to achieve positive results. And last, a credible and relevant strategy. The close cooperation with the OECD Sigma and the use of guidelines has enabled the government to draft a relevant and credible strategy as well as effective implementation implementation and regular and qualitative monitoring and reporting. I would like to point out again and to repeat that the government of the Republic of Kosovo continues to be committed to the further advancement of PFM. Challenges identified in internal and external audit, internal control of public finances and public procurement will be addressed by the coordination group for PFM in the new PFM reform strategy 2022-2026. In this regard, we will use the lessons learned as well from this progress in PFM and replicate the methodology to the other areas in which the last Sigma report has shown that Kosovo has either stagnated or recorded short progress. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Minister Dobra. And Bosnia and Herzegovina. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, Sigma only carried out a partial assessment in 21. We will finalize, as you heard during the presentation, this year by summer, by July. We shall cover also the other areas. In our monitoring work, we respected the fact that public administration reform is within the responsibility of different levels of governments. We therefore assessed the level of institutions of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the Republic of Srpska, the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Brčko district separately. While there are some differences in statuses and trends between the levels of government, overall our findings corroborate the views of the European Commission. Some modest progress has been achieved, but there are really significant challenges ahead. Minister Josip Grubesha, what would you point out as the underlying reasons for limited pace of reforms in Bosnia and Herzegovina? Is there also any strength you would point out? The floor is yours.
Vaše ekscelencije, uvaženi ministri, dame I gospodo, želim
Your Excellencies, dear ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to wish you a good day and thank you for the organization of this important conference. As for the reform of public administration, which is based on modern European standards, it is one of the preconditions for normal and efficient functioning of every society, including our society. It is clear that public administration is a contact point with the citizens, and many other complex aspects of the improvement of quality of life in Bosnia and Herzegovina depend on public administration. That's the first reason that leads us to making efforts and using all available capacities to do the necessary reform of our public administration and meet in that one of the key reform goals of Bosnia and Herzegovina on our path to European Union. Because of the complexity of our constitutional organization and the structure of Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's very important that in such a legal environment, we have a permanent coordination within the state, which in itself means that in this process, all different levels of authorities participate. I believe that you share my opinion in which more responsible, more transparent, and more accountable and more efficient public administration requires our full commitment, maximum efforts, and contribution towards integration into European Union. The reasons for this slowed or limited pace of reform of public administration should be recognized in our country, first of all, in objective circumstances that are caused by general delays in connection with the pandemic of the coronavirus. This influences all spheres of life and work, but equally, the reasons can be found in complex political circumstances of Bosnia and Herzegovina. First of all, we have a problem of one nation that is trying to use unitarism and to impose their own will to other nations or other people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And the fact that our new legislative election legislation has not been adopted is putting Bosnia and Herzegovina into a very difficult political position. So The time that is ahead of us imposes and encourages us to take full responsibility and to join efforts to try to seek answers to all open issues. And I am sure that it will be so helpful for us to get the transfer of knowledge from our international partners. It is important to mention that in all documents related to the reform of public administration and projects and recommendations and conclusions adopted when we had the meeting about the strategic plan, we clearly emphasized that there is a consensus of all participants on all four levels of power in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And that's why I think that there is a willingness and power and strength to deal with the forthcoming challenges. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, we of course agree that coordination between the levels of government is very important in Bosnia and Herzegovina. With this, we have finalized our first round of discussion. I hope you all, the audience found it as interesting as I did. We were focusing mostly on factors of success and obstacles to overcome. Some of you already touched upon your future strategies, but let's now really focus on the future and discuss your strategies going forward, perhaps with a focus on more critical and painful areas. We have less time for this second round. I think there was an opportunity to share your views quite at length in the first round. So this time I would really like to ask you kindly on behalf of the respect of the schedule of the meeting to limit your answer, I would say, to 2 minutes if possible. So let's start with Montenegro this time, if you're okay. Minister Srđetić, could you comment specifically on the situation of senior management in ministries and agencies? Namely, our findings show that more than 50% of the top managers were removed or left the positions after the change of government. And this is not something that is only Montenegro specific, of course. Going forward, what needs to be done to ensure a higher level of professionalism, stability, and integrity of top managers in public administration, who are really the key players? So much depends on them.
Thank you, Gregor, for this question. So workforce turnaround has been an area that we have been monitoring very closely, and Sigma's assessment and support have presented a valuable guidelines and compass for us. So while with administration changes, we often see in other countries everywhere change in top leadership. From day one, among my government peers, I've been striving to be a strong role model and advocate for empowering existing leaders and ensuring that the institutional knowledge and lessons learned lead our way forward. The new law on civil servants, which Parliament pushed at the beginning of our mandate, while criticized for degrading the level of education or expertise requirements, it also brought some positive things. So in accordance to this law, many teams worked really hard to simplify procedures, reduce the number of documents that the candidates had to submit, which consequently reduced the cost from 28 to 3 euros per application. And we also implemented an open call for acting chiefs and upgraded competency framework assessment based on the positive European practices, leadership and situational evaluation, keeping focus on results, teamwork, and innovation. And as a result, we've observed actually a 64% increase in the average number of candidates who applied in the previous years comparing to 2021. So again, a greater diversity of candidates and a higher percentage of the first-time applicants. So folks who never considered to apply to public service applied to public service last year. So a key focus to our public administration reform strategy is human resources reform, professionalization, and upskilling of public servants. And public administration reform action plan includes KPIs regarding gap-based HR recruitment planning, hiring, onboarding, evaluation, and leadership development strategies, and practices that mirror some of the best from around the world. And we already started to pilot and test some of these. And among the organizational imperatives of this job, I've spent a significant amount of the last many months directly engaging with my team to co-create a culture of core values and core principles that define what we expect from each other and what we aspire to be. And the themes include trust, teamwork, collaboration, inclusion, innovation, empowerment, resilience, and a foundational recognition that no asset is more important than an organization, to an organization than our people. So we're sort of using our ministry as a test bed to prototype some of these tools and standards and then spread them across the government. And I'm again touching on the importance of culture here. So in practice, that meant, what this practice meant was investing in a culture that recognizes the importance of creating an environment of psychological safety where people feel they can be their authentic selves, where they feel empowered and supported and cared for and always treated with dignity and respect. And to that end, as a part of our Digital and Leadership Academy, our ministry is putting together psychological safety workshops across our workforce. We've been also investing in a culture that recognizes that we can't be paralyzed by fear of failure, but must continuously learn from our mistakes and from incidents and from events. So we often do retrospectives with our team and identify what worked and what didn't, and what are the actions that come as a result. It's also a culture that recognizes the feedback is a gift. And that is why one of our public administration reform action plan KPIs is to implement 360 feedback for all of our employees to truly disincentivize managing up and to incentivize teamwork and servant leadership. And it's the culture that recognizes that trust, openness, and inclusion is foundation of any good relationship. And that's why last year we closely engaged many stakeholders in iterating on and co-designing policy strategies and action plans and services. In our ministry, we've also invested in a culture that recognizes the importance of not just welcoming diversity, but truly celebrating it. And to that end, we've launched an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion with the goal to embed diversity, equity, and inclusion standards into the fabric of the DNA of how we work, and then to share these standards across the public service. We've also invested in a culture that recognizes that pandemic fatigue, government reshuffles, and otherwise generated burnout is a real thing, and that some people can be just as effective working from home than an office. And this is why we offered remote work for many of our positions at the ministry. So if we strive to create organizational cultures where our people love what they do, respect their colleagues, and are empowered by their leaders and feel like they're making a difference every day, that will not only ensure higher morale, stability, and integrity, but also high productivity. And those are some of the areas our public administration reform focuses that we are testing our ministry and we have been sharing across the public administration service with our colleagues. Happy to share a playbook and all of the tools with everyone.
Thanks a lot. Your thoughts and your approach are absolutely in line with the standards and with the best practices of the OECD and the EU. And you indeed personally serve as a role model. And if all the governments and all the ministers in all governments were following your model, the situation would be of course much better. Thanks so much. Now, Minister Obradović, in a similar question in a way to you, in Serbia, an excessive number of acting directors is a persisting issue, has been a persisting issue now for years. I know that you have already launched discussions on how to overcome it, and Sigma is also taking part in that discussion. Could you share your thoughts and plans with us? What does the system need to have in place so that Serbia would not maintain this practice of acting top managers in public administration? How are you, in what terms are you thinking about the change or adjustment of your system?
I hope you can hear me. Yes. Thank you for this question. Well, the issue of the acting directors or ad interim positions has been a persistent issue in Serbia, just as you mentioned, and I am not comfortable talking about it. I understand that plenty has to be done in order to see some steps forward. If it can help, if it's of any use, in my ministry, we do not have any ad interim directors, acting directors. I try to set a good example in my own backyard. But yes, at the level of the civil service system in Serbia, we still have plenty to do in order to earn a positive score. The position of civil servants is, of course, very important for the development of the overall civil service system, and we pay a lot of attention to assessing and examining the position of civil servants and all the underlying reasons. However, I have to say that 1/2 of the appointments have been ad interim appointments. It's not something to be proud of, and it's something that requires serious efforts. The ministry prepares regulations related to managers and senior civil servants. However, there are other institutions involved, starting from line ministries that launch the recruitment procedures and identify the needs, then on to the Senior Civil Service Council, the Human Resources Agency, the National Public Administration Academy that designs and implements training programs, and of course the government which makes the appointments. In the course of a comprehensive discussion with all the stakeholders, we are trying to streamline the whole procedure from recruitment to appointment to accountability attached to the position or to the communication and coordination of all the relevant stakeholders involved in the procedure. Under the strategy, which covers a period concluding with 2030, we recognize this issue as an important issue for the development of public administration, and we envisaged some actions to help improve the appointment procedures and hopefully also eliminate the excessive number of ad interim positions. Already into the implementation of the new law, we identified the need for further improvements, and for that purpose we've set up a separate working group tasked with drafting the documents that would identify the issues, assess the strengths and weaknesses of the current legislative framework, and define the way forward in this regard. The working group that I'm chairing will strive to win the support of all the relevant stakeholders in order to preclude any problems with implementation, because we are talking about critical issues for the professionalizations of public administration, and this is not something that should remain dead letter. Just as you know, Mr. Virant, Sigma is providing us significant support, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank you personally and the rest of your team for your readiness to join us in this effort, because this is an area that definitely requires action. The new framework is envisaged to be presented to the new government. You know that we have upcoming elections in April this year, and then with the possibility of some runoff elections, we cannot expect the new government to be in place before the second half of the year. This is not something that depends on me personally, but if I'm no longer in this position at that time, I will make sure that I communicate to my successor the importance of this activity, the importance of the working group, and the presence of your support. It's difficult to mention any plans. The dialogue is already just starting. We are ready to engage in a dialogue, to consider the proposals and inputs of all relevant institutions for the sake of improving the overall public administration. I try to set an example with my own ministry, an example that we believe others can follow. That, however, largely depends on the ministers, on the leaders. That's my personal impression. I believe that the document that we adopt has to diminish the role of ministers in the appointment of acting directors, whether it's a matter of not having sufficient time, whether it's a matter of differences in organization across ministries and institutions. I don't know, I can't tell, but I will try to personally set a good example with the Ministry of Public Administration and Local Self-Government. And I tried in the run-up to the election and until we have the new minister making new appointments, I tried not to have a vacuum, not to have any ad interim positions, but to make sure that everybody is there in full capacity. I wanted to avoid that precisely because of this vacuum in between the two governments.
I would also like to thank you for the excellent cooperation between your ministry and Sigma, and we strongly support your approach to the reform, to the adjustment of the system of selection, recruitment, appointment of top managers. In our view, it is important to make sure that the selected candidates are really top-notch in terms of competence, of professionalism, of integrity, but also enjoy trust of the ministers. This is very important. A relation of trust, I mean, mutual trust between the ministers, the politicians and top managers is extremely important. Trust and respect. There has to be trust and respect from both sides, obviously. Thank you very much. We can now again move to Albania. Minister Spirapoli, you have already shared with us some of your plans and strategies for the future. It looks like you have found a good rhythm in public administration reform, so your challenge is to keep the pace and of course to overcome, like everyone else, some weaknesses. So what is next? Is there anything you would like to add to the answer to the first question, where you already shared with us some of the strategies and plans and so on? Please, the floor is yours. We can't hear you at the moment, so if you could just please unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Gregor. Maybe I rushed a little bit and mentioned everything in my speech, and maybe should have left something for the questions and answers. But I want to reiterate once more that for us, the public administration reform is one of the top priorities of the government, and the deputy prime minister of the country coordinates the whole process with the Department of the Public Administration and with other agencies, training and such. So it is very much a priority, and the deputy prime minister is focused on it. As for our roadmap 2030, since our government program is also called the Strategic Development for 2030, we have included the roadmap for the public administration reform in this program, which includes the continuation and depth and deepening of the digitalization process, which we have found is fundamental for the improvement of public services and the fight against corruption. It has also increased the public trust in the public administration and services. In the roadmap, we have tracked all of the challenges that we are facing, as well as built a strategic planning ahead with all of the areas: local government, central government, public finance management, and digitalization, efficient management and professional merit-based administration, which we have found very challenging in the past, and we don't want to lose the pace as of now because we're doing substantial progress. So in all areas included in this roadmap 2030, we will make sure and we will work hard that the good government is strengthened and the fundamental pillars of our commitment to the European Union are followed according to this roadmap.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. And as you said, I mean, Albania is one of the countries where indeed trust in public institutions went up, including the judiciary and independent institutions. And it is really so important for
if I may, 30 more seconds, because the digitalization and public administration reform has been going parallel to the justice reform and the independence of institutions, that has played an important role in increasing public trust. We see this very linked to each other. And also my ministry, I mean, the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, also coordinates the work with independent institutions, and the accomplice with the recommendations of independent institutions has increased from 57% from 2013 to now 89%. And that has also increased the trust in the work of independent institutions, as well as the responsiveness of the public administration and the executive.
Yes, thank you. Yes, as one of the of the founding fathers of the EU said, nothing happens without people, and nothing is sustainable without institutions. So this is very wise thinking and approach. Now, back to Bosnia and Herzegovina, Minister Grubesha, what is your political strategy to step up performance of public administration reform? In your question to the first answer, you highlighted the importance of coordination between different levels of government. Are you discussing with your colleagues at other levels of government any steps to improve this coordination? How will you go about it?
Thank you very much. The Ministry of Justice of Bosnia and Herzegovina has been working steadily and will continue to work in this area, and will continue to have a proactive role and providing its contribution. And this is the stance that we will take with all the other stakeholders. We are determined to contribute to the successful implementation of this important project, which makes an important precondition for Bosnia and Herzegovina's accession to the EU. But just as I mentioned earlier, our primary intention is modernization of public administration reform by streamlining service delivery and organizing electronic delivery wherever possible. Improvement of policies, more effective, more efficient public administration, stronger accountability. Those are the efforts where I would like to highlight the activities of the ministry, primarily in relation to civil service and human resources management. The ministry launched activities to amend the civil service law by assessing the existing legislation and assessing the harmonization of policies in the context of legislative and institutional aspects, including harmonization of civil service policies with the EU public administration principles. I believe you will agree that we all have a demanding task ahead, and this is an opportunity for us to demonstrate utmost responsibility to make a step forward towards achievement of reform goals. We are therefore discussing with other representatives of different levels of government, because we see this as a critical precondition for the stability of Bosnia and Herzegovina and for its unequivocal orientation towards the EU.
Thank you very much. Now, Minister Dobra, a question for you. Looking ahead, how are you planning to address the challenges and to accelerate the reforms?
Well, thank you very much for the question and the opportunity. Reforming public administration is a never-ending task, nor it is an exciting job, but it is a fundamental task for the state and the society. The citizens of Kosovo have given us an impressive mandate to conduct profound reforms in all sectors, including public administration. The Ministry of Internal Affairs has conducted a thorough analysis of the situation in public administration, which unfortunately is not perfect. To address the identified concerns, the government of Kosovo, with the support of our partners, is working on different areas. We are learning from the past, and we are taking also ownership of the reforms in order to deliver the promised reforms to our citizens. Our experience with the strategies in public administration reform, as I said, has taught us a valuable lesson. We have now decided to merge 3 PAR strategies into one, while fixing ambitious but realistic objectives. All relevant institutions are involved in drafting a PAR strategy, and there is a proper cooperation and coordination with the Office of the Prime Minister, which is responsible for drafting the National Development Strategy. Not only, as I said, our partners are involved in this process, but also the civil society organizations, and we are therefore tackling one of the main issues that we faced in the past, that is the interinstitutional coordination and the cooperation with the civil society organizations. In terms of legislation, the Ministry of Internal Affairs is reviewing the law on public officials to address the concerns of the Constitutional Court as well as the issues identified while implementing the existing law. Similarly, and based on the ruling of the Constitutional Court, the ministry is drafting from scratch a law on salaries of public officials. While the draft law is addressing the concerns of the Constitutional Court, it is also aiming at building a better and fairer remuneration system, which is based on principles and a set of criteria. In addition, we are focused on pushing forward the harmonization of our legislation with the law on general administrative procedures, as well as the rationalization of independent and executive agencies. Both these processes have started a few years ago, and the current government has decided to move faster with the 2 processes, and we have sent to the government, and very soon the laws will be adopted by the parliament. Last but not least, the government is working on reducing the administrative burden by simplifying administrative procedures and reducing the cost of delivering public services. Digitalization will be involved in all the above-mentioned reforms, as we are planning indeed to proceed with the digitalization of administrative procedures as well as of public service. We have in the past contacted Sigma, and we have agreed that as soon as we move with the digitalization of public services, we would be working very closely with the team of Sigma in order to ensure that the process goes smoothly. We are working all together in the government so that the above-mentioned laws and strategies will enter into force this year, and the results of our reforms will be tangible, and our citizens and businesses will enjoy better quality services. Our aim is to professionalize our public administration, to increase our capacities in terms of human resources, to work on the issue of high politicization and nepotism within the administration, to improve the situation with lack of accountability, as I mentioned, through, for instance, the rationalization of agencies and the defining of accountability lines for each of them, as well as to draft strategies and laws that are implementable and tackle real issues that our administration is facing and our citizens are facing in their daily lives. Thank you again for your attention, and it's been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much. And we are slowly approaching the end of this panel discussion. The last question will go to Minister Aliti, last but absolutely not the least, North Macedonia. So, Minister Aliti, you've only been in the office for slightly more than a month. Can you share with us what were your first strategic moves and what are your top priorities for the years to come?
Thank you for the question, Gregor. I think it's better maybe to talk about top priorities, and I think that in the context of public administration, first objective is digitalization. In the context of course, of public reform, increasing transparency of the institutions. And the second one would be administrative reforms in a sense of, bringing the necessary laws, but also implementing the laws which contribute in streamlining the administration. Because as we know in the Balkans, sometimes we don't have the problem of having laws. There is no lack of laws, but sometimes it's the lack of will to implement those laws. And now I think this new government in North Macedonia is well positioned because except me, we have also a Deputy Prime Minister on good governance, Mrs. Slavica Grkovska, whom I think she is also attending this conference. So we have agreed that together we should join forces and also convince all stakeholders to do whatever is necessary to do our, necessary reforms. And as for two things which I wanted additional to mention is that first, my idea is to strengthen the cooperation with organizations like Sigma, which have the necessary expertise. But as we see today in this panel, also strengthen cooperation with neighboring countries, with all of you, because we see that there are good practices somewhere working, and we have a lot to learn from each other. And just wanted to emphasize that right now we are working on a detailed analysis of the recommendations regarding the reform of the public administration for Sigma monitoring report. And we, of course, plan to have all of these in account in the further reform activities of our ministry and of the government as a whole. And the implementation of the public administration reforms, as you know, was largely supported by the EU and other bilateral and international donors, as well as by involvement and close cooperation with civil society, which will continue in the future. Because the reform depends on all of us, and we as a ministry will continuously work on strengthening the interinstitutional cooperation as well as cooperation with all stakeholders, especially, as I mentioned, in civil society, in the PAR process, all with the idea and in order to meet the needs of citizens in the process of creating an administration that is efficient and accountable and provides quick and easy access to services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, and we are always happy to help And that was a great point on the importance and usefulness of exchanging good practices and lessons learned. You know, sometimes when we do mistakes and then we share it with colleagues, the colleagues say, well, if you had asked me before, I would have told you that this is not how you should go about it. I tried, it doesn't work. And so on. So let's indeed try to get together as often as possible and exchange in a friendly manner.